You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Former two-weight world champion of Japan, Miyo Yoshida, took to her social media and stated, "I would like to announce that I have been officially concluded my promotional agreement with Lou DiBella Entertainment. I am truly grateful for the opportunities, experiences, and everything I've learned during that time. Keith Sullivan will continue to serve as my boxing manager, and TMA has joined my team as a business advisor. A new chapter begins now. I am fully focused on what lies ahead. The IBF has ordered undisputed bantamweight champion Shakur Johnson to defend her title against me, the division's #1 ranked fighter. I look forward to regaining my world title again. I am managed by Keith Sullivan, who can be reached at this email for all related correspondence and advised by Marty Hopwood of TMA Athlete Management Company, who can be contacted at this email. We remain ready to proceed accordingly and look forward to working together towards the fulfillment of this mandated title defense. Miyo sports a professional record of 18 wins with 5 losses and no draws, no recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 23 professional bouts, last in action a year ago in February of last year when she fought Beata Dudek. That was the only fight that she had the previous year, averaging 1 fight a year for the last 2. She only fought once in 2024 and only once in 2025. She says that the IBF has officially ordered the fight between her and Shakur Johnson, who up until this point was rumored to be going straight into a fight with former champion and MVP stablemate Dina Thorslund. The IBF has in fact ordered this fight between Shakur and Miyo that would throw a serious monkey wrench in any plans to do a fight between her and Dina. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, that's what they say. Miyo would present as Shakur's mandatory via the IBF. Via the WBC, Turkey's own Serene Satine is ranked at #1. Via the WBA, America's own Brittany Sims is ranked at #1. Via the WBO, Mexico's own Diana Fernandez is ranked at #1. So the mandatories are piling up, and every single one of these mandatory challengers presents a more winnable fight than Dina Thorslund would, Miyo Yoshida included. Via the IBF, according to Miyo, the fight between them just got ordered. Shakur Johnson, in theory, could use that as an excuse to get out of the Dina Thorslund fight, because even though that's the best fight to make, it's also the most dangerous opponent for Shakur. Dina Thorslund stands the best chance of ending her reign as undisputed champion. If you're Shakur Johnson, what you have to ask yourself is, what's in it for you in fighting Dina Thorslund? Understand that Dina Thorslund may be the best fight to make at 118 pounds for her in terms of the best versus the best, but in terms of notoriety, scale, and size, Dina is about as well known as any one of her mandatory challengers, Miyo Yoshida included. In the back of my mind, I don't know that Shakur really wants that fight, in particular, all that bad. I don't know that MVP really wants to make it. Comparatively, Shakur is a more marketable fighter than Dina Thorslund. They could just as easily put her in there with Miyo Yoshida on the premise that the fight just got ordered. Do that fight. Have Dina fight one of the other mandatories on the undercard. Secure the Johnson fight that way. Build it up a little more. Because Dina hasn't made her MVP debut. They could put her in there with Mexico's own Diana Fernandez, for example, or Brittany Sims. Could do it that way. Or, alternatively, they could see about getting Miyo Yoshida to step aside so they can do the Thorslund fight. Worst comes to worst, they can drop the IBF title, do the Thorslund fight anyway. Assuming they really want to make it. I don't know that they do, but that's an option. Sort of from the IBF casts a serious air of doubt over whether or not we'll get Johnson versus Thorslund next. I could see Miyo Yoshida getting in the way. I could see Shakur fighting her instead. Swear in the world of boxing, Conor Benn lays out 2026 roadmap that could include 2 consecutive world title fights. The Destroyer closed out 2025 by avenging his middleweight defeat to Chris Eubank Jr. in November. Benn is set to drop back down to welter after closing the book on his rivalry with Eubank. Benn is now due to drop back down 2 divisions to welter with eyes firmly set on gold. Despite not competing at 147 since 2022, Benn is currently ranked number 1 by the World Boxing Council. He's set to be installed as the mandatory for the winner of the upcoming WBC title fight between Mario Barrios and Ryan Garcia on February 21st, while WBA champion Rolly Romero has also offered the Brit a shot at his black and gold title. Keen not to choose between the 2 opportunities, Benn has laid out a rather ambitious plan to fight for both world titles in quick succession. I read a Boxing Scene article where Sean Gibbons also mentioned he heard that Rolly Romero may be facing Conor Benn next. So that might actually happen. Speaking to Ring Magazine, he said, "We could do the Rolly Romero fight in May at the O2 in London, and then the winner of Garcia and Barrios in June or July for a unification. It seems highly unlikely that Benn would be able to take both bouts within 2 months of each other." I suppose that would all depend on how the Rolly fight goes. If he kills him quick in the first few rounds, theoretically he could do that. But 2 camps back-to-back is still 2 camps back-to-back. That does still take a toll on a fighter's body. It's a logistical nightmare. A more realistic time frame for a WBA and WBC unification fight would be a date in either autumn or winter. Benn's roadmap is bad news for Shakur Stevenson, who called out the 29-year-old after his shutout win over Teofimo Lopez in January. Matchroom Boxing CEO Frank Smith had already confirmed to TalkSport that the bout was unlikely to take place earlier this month, but Benn's recent comments are the final nail in the coffin. I don't think it's the favorite fight right now, Smith said of a possible fight with the American superstar. I think Conor wants to win a welterweight world title. IBF welterweight champion Lewis Crocker and IBF junior middleweight champion Josh Kelly have also thrown their hats into the ring to box Benn next. However, Benn's handlers have shown little interest in both propositions. So first, let's talk about the Rolly fight. Let's look at that. It was in October of last year that Rolly Romero was officially ordered to satisfy his mandatory challenger, Shakur Stevenson. This would give Matchroom leverage over Rolly's title in the situation, because if you don't play ball with the Conor Benn fight, we'll just sick our mandatory on you in Shakur Stevenson. Either way, you have to fight one of our fighters. If you're Rolly Romero, out of those 2 choices, the Conor Benn fight would be the better alternative. It pays out more money, it's a more winnable fight. But won't that order from the WBA for Rolly to fight Stevenson get in the way of a Conor Benn fight? Listen, it's been 4 months and they haven't stripped Rolly yet. I get the impression the WBA would rather collect sanctioning fees from a big fight like Romero versus Benn instead of a small one like Romero versus Stevenson. In this situation, if the 2 teams are willing to fight, if Rolly wants the Benn fight and Benn wants the Rolly fight, it's a distinct possibility it can happen in spite of that order. And Shakur, he's up the creek without a paddle. It's fucked up. Why did you say that the Benn fight is the more winnable fight? Because Conor Benn hasn't actually fought as a welterweight in roughly 4 years. Getting down there, we don't know what condition he's going to be in. His punch resistance might be sapped, making a weight he hasn't made in a long time. And Conor Benn doesn't have the amateur background of a Shakur Stevenson. Unbeknownst to most, Shakur Stevenson of Uzbekistan is an Olympic silver medalist. To Rolly Romero, a high-risk, low-reward. A guy who doesn't have a lot of fans, doesn't pay out a bunch of money, but knows how to box. Once again, if you're Rolly Romero and you have to choose between Conor and Shakur, Conor would be the logical choice. The fight can happen. The fight would require Rolly to travel. It would require him to go to the United Kingdom for it to be worth a lot of money so you can make something from it. It is bigger there than it is here, and having to travel isn't the end of the world. Brandon Figueroa just traveled over there and knocked out Nick Ball. So maybe you do the same thing and knock out Conor Benn. Not saying that he will, but compared to the Stevenson fight, the Benn fight is more winnable, more worth your while. Beyond that, Conor Benn wants to fight the winner of Garcia versus Barrios that I anticipate is going to be Ryan Garcia. That would present a string of very lucrative fights for the Nepo baby. I never really thought of Conroy in the context of becoming a world champion, winning a world title, mostly because he was already making so much money, he doesn't actually need one.
Not really.
Look at Chris Eubank Jr. He's never been a world champion anywhere that he fought, but you could say he's made more money than a Yanni Beck, than a Carlos Adames, than a Lara.
So I was kind of thinking the same thing for Conor, that maybe he goes his entire career off his surname and makes money that way, but he wants a world title, and I don't begrudge him that ambition. If he can theoretically beat Rolly, then beat Ryan, he could easily become the face of British boxing. In effect, becoming a unified welterweight champion in the process. Do any of you see that happening?
Do you guys think he can beat them both?
Shakur Stevenson called him out after his fight with Teofimo Lopez. What happens with that?
Nothing. I don't think Shakur is going to get the Conor Benn fight or a Rolly fight or a Ryan fight for that matter. What I could see happening for Shakur on the heels of the biggest win of his career is maybe he gets the winner of Lewis Crocker versus Liam Paro, whoever it is. Just segueing into that portion of the story, and what makes the IBF title the least attractive title of the major four, they have that rehydration cap. A lot of fighters don't want to deal with that, so they usually choose to forego that route for a WBC title, WBA, maybe the WBO. A lot of fighters choose to forego fighting for the IBF for that reason, in tandem with them ordering mandatories.
Everybody knows that the IBF is very strict and stringent when it comes to their mandatories. They don't play around, and they won't hesitate to strip you. In the past, they've stripped anyone from Tyson Fury to Gennady Golovkin to Canelo Alvarez, Joe Cordeña,
They'll strip you.
Jayo Pataya, Alexander Usyk, in a manner of speaking, and several others, to where them being so strict about their mandatories makes them not attractive to a lot of contenders.
So then why would Shakur end up fighting for that belt?
Because he's been stripped of the belt that he had at 135. I don't get the impression that he wants to stay at 140. Moving up to 147, he may not have much of a choice. He himself already said that if what people want is for him to go to the welterweight division, he will implement a 10-pound rehydration cap. If he fights for the IBF, he won't have to because it comes with one.
Okay. But why are you so sure that the winner of this fight would give him an opportunity?
Because they may not have much of a choice either. To fight a big name in a big fight for a big purse, Shakur might be the only guy around. If Ryan is busy with Mario Barrios and Conor Benn is busy with Rolly Romero and the winners of those fights then settle up with each other, that would leave the winner of this fight out in the cold without many options for a big fight. But if Turki El Sheikh intervenes on Shakur's behalf and kicks out a big purse for the winner to give him a shot,
Maybe they give him a shot.
I'm leaning towards Liam Paro to win the fight with Lewis Crocker. Become a two-weight world champion after that. I think he'll fight Shakur. And if he does, I think he would lose the Shakur-Stevenson fight in similar fashion to how he lost the Richardson-Hitchens fight.
That's how I think that cookie is going to crumble. Rumors abound. In men's super middleweight news, it's rumored that newly crowned WBA champion Jose Armando Resendiz could be facing his countryman and former world champion Jaime Munguia on the undercard of Benavidez versus Ramirez in May.
Sharp deviation from what we originally heard for Armando. They said he was going to be fighting Edgar Berlanga, who's still on the bounce, on the rebound, after being knocked out by Hamza Shiraz. Change of plans.
Though not the first that we've heard of this rumor, it's been around for a little over a month now. It would make sense to put Armando in the ring with Jaime on the undercard of that fight because when it's happening Cinco de Mayo weekend. When you consider that Canelo Alvarez won't be fighting on Cinco de Mayo like he usually does, that's going to leave a lot of Mexican-American boxing fans looking for something to watch. If you're getting Resendiz versus Munguia and Benavidez versus Ramirez all on the same show, I think that could help to drive sales.
Maybe not as much as a Canelo Alvarez fight would, but still.
Might actually make a difference. Resendiz versus Munguia as a fight is better than a Berlanga fight would have been because Jaime Munguia is more battle-tested than Edgar Berlanga. I notice a lot of people have lost a lot of faith in Jaime after he was knocked out by the Frenchman Bruno Surace in what was the upset of the year that year.
Get knocked out by a guy you were so widely favored to beat who only had about 4 or 5 recorded knockouts going in. A lot of people have lost a lot of faith in Jaime.
And he didn't restore their faith in the rematch, the second fight, because in the second fight, he didn't do to Bruno what Bruno did to him.
You didn't knock him out.
He definitely won with Eddie Reynoso in his corner, but not in a way that would restore people's faith. So now he's rumored to be facing Armando Resendiz. Resendiz is a pressure guy, pressure fighter coming off a career-best win over Caleb Plant, who he beat from pillar to post. Jaime,
He's sort of a pressure guy too, ain't he?
he normally is, but with Eddie Reynoso in his corner and boxing the way that he boxed in his last fight, gives me the impression Eddie's trying to turn him into more of a boxer and more of a thinker.
Is that gonna work?
It might. I could see Jaime Munguia winning this fight because I don't know that Armando Resendiz can beat him at his own game. I don't know that he can out-pressure the pressure fighter in Jaime Munguia.
What?
Few added bells and whistles to his game. Jaime can box him up where he needs to box him up, and he can fight him off where he needs to fight him off. With Armando, what you see is what you get, and there's not much to it. Whereas Jaime, he is trying to improve. And of the two, he is the more experienced fighter. Having been in there with Liam Smith, Sergey Didivianchenko, John Ryder, Canelo.
He's more experienced.
Now, there are questions about his punch resistance. What remains of it? Is he now damaged goods, and that's why Bruno was able to knock him out? Personally, I wouldn't write him off.
I wouldn't count him out.
I could see him winning that fight with Armando. The broadcast information for this card still is in the air. Most people are assuming that it's going to be a joint pay-per-view shown on both Amazon Prime and DAZN. It being that in the main event, you got a PBC guy and a Golden Boy guy.
Maybe it ends up on both platforms?
Or maybe Turki El Sheikh gets involved, and he does for this show what he just did for Garcia versus Barrios, decides to pay for it himself. Maybe he decides to pay for this.
How many times do we gotta entertain a scenario where Turkey pays for the show?
Quite a few, because initially, I didn't think he was going to pay for Garcia versus Barrios. I thought Golden Boy and the PBC were going to do that on their own, till he got involved. So, maybe he'll get involved with this. It's not a bad-looking card when you think about it. Munguia versus Resendiz? That's a great fight. And in the main event, even though I'm not a fan of David Benavidez and Zerto is ducking Jai Opataya, the fight between them, aesthetically, still makes for a good fight. Could be shaping up to be a really solid card, full of action fights on Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Bottom line, I like Munguia versus Resendiz. I think that is a fight that can deliver solid co-main event.